What's on, Minifans? This video is a simplish build using I-beams. I wanted to see what they could be used for in terms of scattered terrain and walkways, and here's the result. As always, like and subscribe if you like anything you see, leave a comment and I'll get back to you, and ring that notification bell if you want to stay up to date with my content. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on to building. The main building material for this project is 3mm chipboard, although you could use any kind of chipboard. So what I start off doing is cutting it into 1cm strips, and I do a load of these. With those 1cm strips, I make these into the I-beams. So I initially lay one flat on the table, put the next one on top of it, and then just spots of super glue to hold it into place, and then flip it over and do the same, and then I use PVA glue to strengthen that bond. So I do this with all. Alrighty, so these are all the different I-beams I've made. A couple of long ones, they're going to be a walkway. I did four to make just like a pile of I-beams, and then the other ones I've cut at angles because I want to do something slightly different with those. So I'm making 3 different pieces. So this first piece, I've cut a shape out of chipboard, and I've kind of beveled the edge as much as I can. So I glue the 2 angled beams onto this, and a couple of chunks of XPS foam, and I also use some straw offcuts just for some more detail. And after this, I PVA glue all the open spaces and pour on some coarse sand, sort of little stones in there. I wait for that to dry, and then off camera, using a pipette and some watered down PVA, I drip this on top to make sure it all holds in place. Next piece is the walkway, so I'm using the 2 long I-beams for this one, and using the cutting mat as the base, I put these so they're 4cm apart, and then I've got all these sections, just rectangular sections of chipboard cut out. They're 5cm wide and just varying shapes. One's got a hole cut out in it to simulate damage, and I glue on a piece of card to cover that later. But I just hot glue these onto the I-beams in, a bit of a configuration. After this, I dot, just using a pen, I put some dots in the corners of each of those rectangles of chipboard, and then put rivets there. So again, I'm using my fingernail jewellery bead things, using my damp finger, get them into place, and then cocktail stick, bit of super glue, and manoeuvre it into place. After this is all dried, I Mod Podge everything, prime it, and then base coat with burnt umber. Painting. Simple. I just dry brush all the metal sections with silver. For the bit of scatter terrain with the coarse sand on, I paint all that sand and the XPS foam, sort of rock or concrete bits. I just paint these with a watered down grey. Off camera, I paint those bits of straw red just for a bit of variation. Now the four beams, which so far we haven't done anything with except paint, I now glue these together with PVA. And I'm pretty happy with this as it stands, and we could just leave it here, but I want to do a few extra things just to make it look a bit more interesting. Alright, so the pile of I-beams we've just glued together, I grab a couple of lengths, short lengths of its DIY chain, just fine chain, and I glue these on. And I use super glue, but I want it static, so I use a cocktail stick and kind of rub the super glue all over the length of the chain, so you know it is static. I do one other bit of detail here. So what I've got is a wet wipe, which I've left out so it's now dry, and I rip this into lengths, like really shred it up a bit. I find it's better to rip rather than cut. You get a sort of more realistic tear. So I've watered down some PVA, I soak this in, and then just put it over the end of one of those I-beams, and I kind of maneuver it into place quite a lot, and I end up using a hairdryer to dry this quicker. Then after it is dried, I paint that the cloth a sort of palish brown, and I paint the chains gold. Once all the base coats are dry, I black wash everything, and that's my homemade black wash, which again is black acrylic paint mixed with a load of water and a drop of dish soap. So once the wash is dried, I dry brush that sand with several lighter and lighter greys, and I also dry brush some red on the pipes and a sort of cream colour onto that cloth. Then rust. So I mix up a rust texture paint again. So just a burnt umber, bit of very fine sand and some baking soda, and I blob this on using an old paintbrush. Definitely use an old paintbrush. After that's dried, using some sponges, I sponge on some burnt umber around the texture paint bits, and then some orange on top. And that's it, job done. Here's a photo of everything together with some of my old scenery to shore up that walkway. Hope you enjoyed the vid, and see you in the next one. Cheers for now.